Okay, so we're doing another lecture today. I'm trying to get them all out there for you so you can watch them all at your own pace and at your own time. So we've done quite a few today, but hopefully that helps you get through. So normally in this lecture, it's kind of a fun day because we have another sponge activity, which is kind of like blackjack, like we played earlier in the semester, where I ask students questions, and if you pass the sponge activity, you don't have a quiz, and if you don't pass, then you have a quiz. So normally we play red chip, black chip, which is if you get a question right, you get a black chip in the bag. You get a question wrong, you get a red chip. And the more black chips you get, the better chance you have of winning the activity. And then I call somebody up and ask them if they want to play for the class or try and entice them with money or gift cards or other enticing motives. So you missed out on that, which is disappointing. And then we usually go over to the Wilk and play a game for a little while that has to do with communication. And the basis of the game is that the people at the top of the organizational chart often fail to communicate with the people at the bottom of the community or of the organizational chart. And so a lot of people at the bottom end up floundering because they don't know what the organizational expectations are. They struggle with the vision of the company, where the executives of the company often spend a lot of time on their vision and creating what those expectations and what success should look like, but that never really gets passed down to those line employees that are actually doing the work. And a lot of times it might get lost in translation in middle management, where middle management doesn't have the information from the top executives. And so there's just kind of a lot of turning of wheels within organizations because expectations and agendas aren't set for what success looks like in the company. That's the very short version. That usually takes 20 to 30 minutes just to play that game to get that point across, but it's a little bit more fun and a little bit more memorable in a setting that a lot of students have really enjoyed that activity. So I'm disappointed that you guys don't get to have that, but I wanted to at least express the principle behind communication is key. Being able to communicate to your employees what success looks like and what the objective of the company is very important. And so this will be a much shorter lecture because we're taking out those two activities. But I want to at least get you the information that you need to know that will help you in your careers as you're looking at different organizations and trying to understand what success looks like in different terms of organizations or different types of organizations that you're going to be going into. But as far as being a good project manager, there's really three keys in terms of giving information to your employees and being able to guide what that direction looks like. And so if I share this with you, we're going to call these three keys to project management. Lost you there for a second. Stop share and bring our share back. Okay, so bring that back up here. So the three keys, the first one is be predictable. You want to be predictable. Your employees should know what the responses they should get. The second one is be consistent. And these don't come in any particular order, but these are just kind of 3 keys that you should be looking at. And then the other one is be reliable. Do what you say you're going to do, be able to get done what you need to get done. And then being consistent is important for your employees to know what responses they can get, and that it's the same response throughout, so that they're not questioning all the time the things that you're looking for them to do as employees. And so communication is a very important tool. As you're going through, you want to make sure that you're communicating to your employees very clearly. And as a project manager, one of the things you also need to know is you're going to be asked a lot of times to make solutions happen or to make projects happen. And you might not always like what the solution is, or you might not always like what the project is. You might say, well, why in the world would somebody build this? That's not up to you. Your job is just to go make it happen. So you've got to figure that out. It was kind of always a question that I had when I was building this resort for the owner of the Discovery Channel in Gateway, Colorado. I thought, who in the world is going to come here? It's 60 miles from nowhere. It's a town of 120 people. There's not much to do. And I just couldn't see the vision for this resort. And it's been a failing resort ever since it's opened. It's never made any money. But that wasn't my job. My job wasn't to go and tell the owner that, hey, this isn't going to work or anything else. He was the one that had $1 billion and decided he wanted to spend a few million building a resort. And so my job was to make it happen and make his vision happen. And so sometimes you might not always like the solution that's come up with or the project that you're working on. Your job is just to make it happen. And so in your company, as you're communicating with employees and you're getting communication from upper management, you need to understand what success looks like in that company. And that's a question that you need to look at from the start. So even when you're interviewing for companies, you want to know what kind of company you're going to work for. And so I'm going to draw a little box here. We're going to talk about 4 different kind of cultures within companies. And company culture helps you make decisions as a project manager. And you need to understand that company culture so that you can make effective decisions and make the right decisions so that your company can be successful and achieve the right goals. So the first kind of company is what we call collaboration. Collaboration. Stop one there and okay, so we've got collaboration there, and this is a very customer focused. Culture. So an example of this that we like to use is Nordstrom. So if you know anything about shopping at Nordstrom, you know that they have a very strong following of customer clients because they are treated with such good customer service. Customer service is the key to Nordstrom. A lot of times you'll hear of an old lady taking a lawnmower back to Nordstrom's and saying, this lawnmower doesn't work, I want a refund. And they give her a refund on this lawnmower. Well, the problem is Nordstrom's doesn't sell lawnmowers. But they've been known for such good customer service to where sometimes they would take back things that they don't even sell just to maintain loyal customers. So that's a very customer focused. Another example would be like the Ritz-Carlton hotel brand. Up in Aspen, Colorado, they have this certain brand on this hotel. It's a high-end brand. And I had a friend that was staying up there, and he was waiting out for a ride, and the ski shuttle passed by and splashed him with the slush from the snow. and it got all over his suit, and he was supposed to have a meeting the next day. And so the hotel went out and bought him a new suit because there was no dry cleaners that could get it done fast enough. And so they found a shop that was open, they got him a new suit, and he was able to go to his meeting. Now, that's going to breed some customer loyalty right there. Do you think he's going to stay at the Ritz-Carlton again? Absolutely. And so some of those organizations that are built on customer service, they might tell their employees, so like at the Ritz, they might say to their employees, you have $500, no questions asked, to make sure that these employees have an amazing experience. And so if they need to go buy a suit, or they need to do something nice for a customer who's not happy, they can go ahead and up to $500, just charge it, and the company is happy because then they've made good customers. So making decisions in that company is going to be very different than maybe another company that you're working for. So the next company culture that we'll talk about is more of a control company. This is more process and controls, or process and efficiency. C-driven. So this is more do everything that you can to make it faster and cheaper and just sell more of it. So kind of more of like the Walmart model or a track home builder. In construction, you're looking at a track home to where you don't let the customer make decisions. You say, this is what you get. We're going out, we're going to build it. Any decision that you make that's going to affect our process and efficiency, we are going to charge you a whole lot for, because we don't want you to make it, because our whole model is selling more faster. So you're going to make decisions in this model very different than you would in a customer-focused model where you're dealing with customer service. And so in the control or process, if you're working at a track home builder, customer comes in and says, well, I'd like to change my paint color. And you say, nope, sorry, you signed at the beginning. We can't do that. That's going to ruin our processes and efficiency. So you've got some there. You're trying to do it just faster and make more money there. The next quadrant is competence. Okay, so this is a different model. This is more of a high-end model where you're looking at the best, right? Mercedes cars, they have a slogan going on that says the best or nothing. Is Mercedes trying to sell to everyone? No. Mercedes isn't trying to sell to somebody who's in the market for a Hyundai or a Toyota Corolla or something like that. Mercedes is selling a brand. They're selling an expertise to say ours is the finest. Ours is engineering. And so one of the things that people go to work for Mercedes for is because sometimes they'll have each year their top engineers get to go and design the next model for the next year. And that's kind of a reward for being the best. And one of the things that came out of that a few years back, if you might remember seeing some Mercedes that had windshield wipers on the headlights. Now, most headlights don't need windshield wipers, but because it was Mercedes, they said, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to be the best. And so in this case, you're looking more in construction at a custom home builder, to where they are saying, we're not building for everyone. We are building the very best. Not everyone's going to be our client, and we're okay with that. And so in this instance, you're going to make decisions differently, to where you might install a wood floor, and you go in and you look at it and you're not happy with how it looks, and you tell the subcontractor, tear it out. I don't care what it costs. We are building the best, and we are not going to turn that over to somebody. We're not just in this to make money. We have a reputation to uphold. And so making decisions in that company is going to be very different than the other two. because you are focused on that competence or that excellence in your field. And then the last one is what we call cultivation. Now, cultivation is more employee focused. And so you see that more in aspects of companies like Google or Amazon or Facebook. They're trying to make the employee happy so that the employee does good work. And they pride themselves on getting the best employees because they're providing an experience for the employee. So they can go out and they're willing to pay their employees, but they expect a lot of their employees, but they're also willing to give the employees an experience where they've got, free lunch or ping pong tables or flexible work hours, to where they're going through and saying, you know what, we're going to focus on our employees, and our employees will do good work because they're happy. And so those are the kind of four main different cultures in any work environment, really. You're looking at these different things. And so going into a company, you need to know where you're at as a company. And so most people would say that, oh, well, I'm going to build a company that encompasses all of them equally. And try and hit this number in the middle, and it's going to be equal. And you can't do that, mainly because then your employees don't know how to make decisions. Okay, so I'm going to take that off of there. Now, you can have elements of all of these in a company, but one of them has to be the most dominant. And so you might say, okay, I'm looking over here, and this is what I'm looking at. And so my major process is control. So this might be a higher end track home builder. It could be a DR Horton or a Toll Brothers, to where they're still very focused on efficiency. They want to have a great product. They're looking at customer focus. They might not be so employee focused, but they are giving their employees a basis to which to make decisions off of. We're still looking at processes and control. Or you might say, you know what, we're going to go with something like this, and we've got more in the competence and controls. And so you've just got different levels of where your bubble falls. So yes, you're probably going to include some of all. Otherwise, if you don't have any focus on your employees, you're probably not going to have employees work for you very long. But as long as you've got your main bubble in one of these four quadrants, that helps your employees know how to make decisions. And that's something that's really important. And it's important for you as you go out and work for companies to figure out which one of those quadrants you need to be working mostly in, so that you know how to make decisions, because each one will find out something different. And so you kind of want to look at those, find your bubble, and then make sure that you're doing things that are appropriate. One thing that you might need to also recognize is sometimes companies can change. I remember where my first company that I worked for, it was probably, more like this. We were heavier over here in the customer focus. We were a very negotiated builder. So we would negotiate with clients. We would do repeat work. We were doing resort work. The employees were happy. We were very competent in what we did. We focused some on processes and control, but we weren't super tight on that. But our job was to make the customer happy in terms of resort building, and to make it a great experience for that owner, so that they could make it a great experience for their guests. Now, during the recession, we ended up changing very much. And it probably looked a lot more like that. Because now, instead of negotiating projects with owners, we were bidding against 25 other contractors just to get any small project. And so we had to change. And I remember very vividly in a meeting, our boss saying, they're talking about an employee who didn't really want to do something one way. And he just said, we'll tell him he's going to do it our way, or we'll find someone who will. And that was very different from the company and the president's attitude when I went there. And that was mostly because of the market. The boss was under stress, and he was, worried about how he's going to keep this company going and keeping people employed. And so it went from being more customer and employee focused to a control and process focused company very fast because of the market that we were in. And so you have to kind of have your eye on that and understand that this bubble can shift. Usually it'll shift if new management comes into play. Sometimes it can shift depending on market conditions. So you want to make sure that you've got an idea of how that matches within the company that you're going to. And so doing that and looking at kind of your leadership and how you're leading people, kind of going on to leadership, you want to look at different styles of leadership. Many of you have probably talked in your global leadership class about different types of leadership that are out there, and different types of power that you might use. And so just a few different types of power quick that we use. So we use coercive power. That's kind of force. That's saying you will do this because I will make you do this. As a parent, you do that all the time, right? You will take a bath because I'm going to make you take a bath. And then sometimes you will use reward power. You say, oh, well, if you eat your dinner, I'll give you a treat, Same thing we do with employees. You do this, I'll give you a bonus. Or, hey, if you guys hit this quota, I'll give you this. And so sometimes we use that power of rewards, and that works sometimes. Other times we use legitimate power. And that's authority by virtue of your position. And so that's kind of, well, you're the project manager, I'm below you, I will do what you say because you legitimately have power over me. You have the ability to direct my work. And so legitimate power is something that we often use as well. Another kind of power that you might see is expert power. That's power by expertise, because of what you know. And sometimes that can trump legitimate power. And so a lot of times, like as a project manager, you're relying on your subcontractors who are expert. As a project manager for the general contractor, you have legitimate power over those subcontractors. They need to do what you've asked them to do as long as it's in their contract. But a lot of times as a project manager, I would rely on the expert power of my subs. I'd say, hey, you know what you're doing. I'm deferring to you on this. That would trump my legitimate power and say, hey, we're going to go with his idea because he knows what he's talking about. And so expert power is something that's utilized a lot as well. And then the most influential kind of power is what we call referent power. That's the power that you most respect, and that's the power that's given because of who a person is. Gandhi is an example of somebody who had a lot of referent power. People respected that person, or they respected him as a person. And so being able to have that authority to where you say, oh, I like that person so much, or that person's such a good mentor to me that I would follow whatever they told me to do. You always hear people saying, oh, I'd run through a brick wall for that person, or I would do anything for that person just because of who they are as a person. And that's probably the most strong power that you can have and that you're trying to develop as a leader. So work on that as you're trying to develop leadership skills. Understand what kind of power you're using. Understand what kind of a leader that you are, and try and build that referent power. Try and become a leader through your actions and through your character, as opposed to just your position. And people will want to follow you and want to do good and work for you as well. And so that's kind of the lecture that I had on organizational project management, just really understanding, one, your leadership style, two, how you fit into a company culture, and understanding that that culture helps you make decisions. And you need to understand what they are so you can make the right decisions. And then as you're being a manager and you're making those decisions and communicating expectations, be consistent and reliable and predictable, so that your employees know what they can expect from you. And so that's the last content lecture, as in terms of a lot of new material. We'll have one more lecture that I'll share with you, just kind of some final tips on project management, some thoughts on the book Leadership and Self-Reflection, and then we'll be done for the semester in terms of lecture. You'll still have all of your assignments due based on the schedule on Learning Suite, and your exam will be online in Learning Suite at the time of the final that's scheduled. We'll stick with that, and so that everybody's on there at the same time taking the final. If you have any questions, please reach out. Again, I hope you're doing well. I hope things are going good for you. Look for good things in the world. Look for opportunities to serve, even though you're hunkered down in your quarantines. But look for opportunities to learn and do good. And we will see you in our next lecture.